One of them hauled 185 tons of redwood logs in a single load, worth $500,000 in today's money. Another was so wide and so heavy that it could not legally be driven on a public road. A third was nicknamed the Sow in Alaska because of how it wallowed through deep mud with loads no other truck could move. These were not ordinary trucks. These were the Timber Kings. And these are the 10 that ruled every forest road on Earth. Number 10. Hayes HDX. Let us start with one of the most uncompromising logging trucks ever built. The Hayes HDX was a specialized off-highway heavy-haul truck manufactured by Hayes Manufacturing of Vancouver, British Columbia. It was designed for one purpose: hauling enormous loads of logs on private logging roads where conventional highway trucks would be crushed or stuck within minutes. The HDX was built around massive clock planetary tandem rear axles rated for up to 121,000 pounds. The cab was offset to the left of the center line because the truck was so wide that the front track was actually narrower than the rear track. It was completely impractical and frequently illegal on public roads, but on the private timber haul roads of British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest, the HDX could move loads that would destroy lesser trucks. Hayes Manufacturing had been founded in Vancouver in the 1920s and had earned a reputation as the king of West Coast Canadian truck building. The HDX was the company's ultimate expression of off-highway engineering, but Hayes was sold to a subsidiary of Pacific Car and Foundry, the parent company of Kenworth and Peterbilt, in 1975. 1 year later, the new owner closed Hayes permanently. After 56 years in business, the king of British Columbia trucks was killed by a competitor. Today, the surviving HDX trucks are restored by specialty rebuilders for use in mining, oil and gas, and heavy haul applications. Number 9. Pacific P12 and P16. When 3 former Hayes employees left the company in 1947 to start their own truck manufacturer, they did it just down the road in the Vancouver area. Pacific Truck and Trailer Company became Hayes' biggest direct competitor and produced some of the most legendary off-highway logging trucks in history. The Pacific P12 and P16 were specifically engineered for the brutal conditions of British Columbia logging operations. They shared family DNA with the Hayes trucks because their designers had come from Hayes, but they pushed the off-highway concept even further. The P16 was a full off-highway monster, designed for the heaviest log hauls and the worst forest roads imaginable. These trucks were rated for capacities of 100 to 175 tons, with hydraulic or stationary fifth wheels. Pacific trucks were exported internationally, with units finding work as far away as South Africa and Indonesia. Production began in the early 1960s and continued until the mid-1990s, with one final unit reportedly built in 19... Pacific was independent for most of its history, though it was briefly owned by International Harvester in the 1970s. Like Hayes, Pacific eventually fell victim to changing logging policies and shifting industry economics. Today, surviving P12s and P16s are some of the most prized off-highway trucks on the rebuild market. Number 8. Kenworth 850 and 853. Kenworth itself entered the off-highway logging market with its 85 and 853 series, designed to compete directly with the Pacific and Hayes monsters being built nearby. These were Kenworth's answer to the demand for purpose-built off-highway heavy haulers in the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. The Kenworth 850 was a true off-highway truck, not road legal in most jurisdictions due to its width, weight, and configuration. It featured the same massive planetary axles, oversized tires, and reinforced frame that defined the off-highway category. Customers could specify Cummins, Caterpillar, or Detroit diesel engines, with horsepower ratings reaching 600 in some configurations. Kenworth had built its reputation in 1923, specifically by tackling the problem of moving heavy logs down tight, rugged, muddy logging roads in the Pacific Northwest. The 850 series was a continuation of that founding mission, just scaled up to nearly impossible dimensions. These trucks worked alongside the Hayes HDX and Pacific P16 in the great logging camps of Vancouver Island and coastal British Columbia, a class of vehicle collectively known as fat trucks on the coast. Production of all 3 running mates continued through the mid-1990s before changing timber policies ended the era. Number 7. Mack RS767 LST and RW Super-Liner. While the West Coast had its specialized off-highway monsters, the rest of North America's logging industry needed serious on-highway power. Mack Trucks of Allentown, Pennsylvania, was happy to provide it. The RS-767 LST and the legendary Super-Liner became fixtures in logging operations across the United States and Canada. The Mack RS-767 LST was a tandem-axle conventional truck specifically configured for log hauling, with the LST suffix designating its log skid tractor specification. These trucks were typically powered by Cummins NTC 350 engines, producing 350 horsepower, paired with Spicer or Eaton Fuller manual transmissions of 13 to 15 speeds. They became the workhorses of the Eastern North American logging industry. The Super-Liner, introduced in 1977 and produced through 1993, was Mack's flagship long-hood conventional truck. The RW766 LST and RW767 LST log truck variants featured Cummins NTC 400 engines, producing 400 horsepower, mated to Eaton Fuller RT910 9-speed transmissions. The Super-Liner's distinctive long hood, set forward axle, and aggressive styling made it instantly recognizable. Its build quality and durability made it legendary. Loggers across North America swore by the bulldog hood ornament, and many Super-Liners remain in active logging service today, decades after they left the factory. Number 6. Western Star 4900. The Western Star 4900 became the gold standard for North American logging trucks, and it has been hauling timber for nearly 6 decades. Western Star Trucks was founded in 1967 as a subsidiary of the White Motor Company, with manufacturing originally based in Kelowna, British Columbia. The 4900 was the company's flagship model from the very beginning, and it was specifically engineered for mountain logging. The first 4900s were built in Kelowna and were designed to handle the demanding conditions of British Columbia's interior logging operations. The truck featured a galvanized steel cab with extra gussets and reinforcements, bonded rather than riveted construction, and a multi-stage E-coat process for corrosion resistance. The chassis was built strong with optional skid plate protection, and the truck offered one of the highest ground clearances available in any heavy-duty highway truck. Western Star 4900s were typically powered by Caterpillar 346, Detroit Series 60, Detroit DD15 or DD16, or Cummins X15 engines, with horsepower ratings ranging from 350 to 600 and torque from 1,050 to 2,050 pound-feet. The luxury cab was larger than the competition, with extra insulation and double-door seals, making it surprisingly comfortable for such a heavy-duty vehicle. The 4900 has been continuously produced since 1967, evolving through multiple updates while retaining its core identity as a logger's truck. It is, simply, the ruler of the North American Forest Highway. Number 5. Peterbilt 359. The Peterbilt 359 was not specifically a logging truck, but it became one of the most beloved log haulers in American forestry. Manufactured from 1967 to 1987, the 359 had a 20-year production run that established it as one of the most iconic American conventional trucks ever built. The 359 featured Peterbilt's signature angular hood, oval headlights, and aluminum cab construction. It was available with a wide range of Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit diesel engines, with output reaching 600 horsepower in late production heavy haul configurations. Peterbilt's flat-fended heavy-duty variants, the 353 and later the 387, were used extensively for heavy logging and oil field work, where their reinforced construction could handle the brutal conditions. What made the Peterbilt 359 special for logging was its combination of mechanical toughness and driver appeal. It was a truck that loggers were proud to own and willing to invest in, and the lightweight aluminum cab construction maximized payload capacity. The 359 became a status symbol on Western logging roads, often customized with elaborate paint schemes, polished aluminum tanks, and acres of chrome. Many Peterbilt 359 loggers, now decades old, are still hauling timber today, lovingly maintained by drivers who refuse to give them up. Number 4. Kenworth W900. The Kenworth W900 is the longest-running production truck in American history, and it has been hauling logs for over 6 decades. Introduced in 1961 to replace the earlier 900 series, the W900 became the definitive American long-hood conventional truck and a staple of North American logging operations. The W900 was named with the W standing for Worthington, one of Kenworth's two original founders, paying homage to the company's heritage. The truck featured a larger cab and redesigned instrument panels compared to its predecessor, and it could be ordered in countless configurations to suit virtually any heavy-duty application. For logging, customers specified the W900 with reinforced frames, heavy-duty axles, oversized cooling systems, and engines ranging from 350 to over 600 horsepower. Kenworth's reputation in the logging industry traced directly back to the company's founding in 19... Harry Kent and Edgar Worthington had specifically created Kenworth to solve the problem of how Pacific Northwest loggers struggled to haul heavy loads down tight, rugged, muddy logging roads. The W900 was the perfected expression of that founding mission. Even today, Kenworth W900s are common sights on logging roads from British Columbia to Maine. The model has remained in continuous production for over 60 years, an achievement no other American truck has matched. Number 3. White Western Star. Before Western Star became its own brand, it operated as White Western Star, a subsidiary of the White Motor Company. From 1976 onwards, the White Western Star nameplate appeared on heavy-duty logging trucks throughout the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. When the White Motor Company was acquired by Volvo, Western Star was separated from the deal and continued as an independent manufacturer. White itself had a long history in the logging industry. White trucks had been hauling timber across North America since the early decades of the 20th century. The company's robust construction and powerful engines made them favorites for heavy-duty applications. White's flat decks and conventional log haulers were a common sight on logging roads through the 1940s. The transition from White Western Star to standalone Western Star in the 1980s preserved the brand's identity and its dedication to heavy-duty applications. The galvanized cabs, reinforced frames, and high ground clearance that made White Western Stars famous became standard features on the modern Western Star 4900 and its successors. White's legacy in logging never disappeared. It simply evolved into the Western Star brand that still rules the forest roads today. Number 2. FWD Logging Trucks. The four-wheel drive auto company, known as FWD, built one of the longest-lived and most respected lines of all-wheel drive logging trucks in American history. Founded in Clintonville, Wisconsin in 1909, FWD pioneered four-wheel drive technology in commercial trucking decades before it became common. FWD trucks were heavily favored for logging operations because all-wheel drive was a massive advantage on muddy, snowy, and steep forest roads. The company supplied trucks to logging operations across the United States, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, the Lake States, and the South. Throughout the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, FWD logging trucks were powered by various engines including Cummins and Caterpillar diesels and were known for their incredible traction in conditions that defeated lesser trucks. FWD also produced the famous Tractioneer and other specialized logging models. The company's all-wheel drive technology was so respected that FWD trucks served in the military through both world wars and into the Vietnam era. After decades of independent operation, FWD merged with Seagrave Fire Apparatus in 1963 to form FWD Seagrave. Heavy truck production gradually wound down through the 1970s as the market consolidated. The FWD logging legacy lives on in the all-wheel drive technology that has since been adopted across the heavy. Number 1. Peterbilt 379. Our number 1 spot goes to a truck that became the most iconic logging truck of the modern era. The Peterbilt 379 succeeded the legendary 359 in 1987 and was produced for 20 years until 2007. During that 2-decade run, it established itself as the gold standard for heavy-duty conventional trucks in North America and the king of the modern logging industry. The 379 featured an extended hood, set-forward axle configuration, and lightweight aluminum cab construction. It was available with Caterpillar 3406, Detroit Series 60, and Cummins N14 and ISX engines, with horsepower ratings reaching 600 in heavy-haul configurations. For logging specification, customers ordered reinforced frames, 18-speed transmissions, 46,000-pound rear ends with double lockers, dual exhaust stacks, and oversized cooling systems. What made the 379 the king of forest roads was its combination of mechanical toughness, driver comfort, and fuel efficiency. Its predecessor had been beloved, but the 379 took everything the 359 did well and made it better. The aerodynamics were improved without sacrificing the iconic long hood Peterbilt look. The interior was more comfortable, the drivetrain options were broader, and the build quality was superlative. When the 379 was discontinued in 2007 in favor of the 389, logging companies bought up every remaining 379 they could find. Used 379 prices remained extraordinarily high for years. Even today, well-maintained Peterbilt 379 logging trucks command premium prices on the used truck market, and they remain a common sight on logging roads from Oregon to Georgia. The 379 was the truck that proved that a logging vehicle could be brutally tough, beautifully styled, and genuinely refined all at the same time. It earned its place at the top of this list by being the most desired logging truck of its generation and arguably of all time. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me which timber truck impressed you the most. I will see you in the next one.